Alright guys, today I'll be giving you my predictions for what each Cedar Fair park is going to end up with in 2025. Now, this does not include the Six Flags parks, because yes, the merger did happen, and that's all going on and whatever, but yeah, the decisions were most likely already made for 2025 for Six Flags, so they already knew what they were doing. They didn't get Cedar Fair's input on any of that, and vice versa. I'm sure Cedar Fair had all these plans before the merger, so I'm just going to assume that all of these additions were all Cedar Fair. So with that being said, I'm going to list the 3 parks that I think are really not going to get anything except maybe new benches. I mean, you never know. These 3 parks being Valley Fair, CGA, and Dorney Park. Dorney Park obviously just got Iron Menace. They're not going to be getting anything else, especially since they're a bottom tier park. They're not at the bottom, but they're not going to get anything after a B&M dive. Valley Fair is kind of the opposite. They're most likely prepping for a huge 2026 with, who knows, maybe like a Raptor or something. I'll definitely look into that as we get closer to it, but for now, all we know is they're most likely getting something in 2026, so I predict 2025 is going to be a pretty down year for them. And, well, CGA is CGA. Yeah, they're not going to be around much longer, so we're not going to get anything there, I bet. But let's get into a park that I know this is a wild concept. This is something you really got to grasp and wrap your head around. But I really think Michigan's Adventure is going to get something next year. I know I'm making a bold statement right there. I mean, a really bold statement. But I mean, we know how good that relationship with Zamperla is. We know Michigan's Adventure really needs something. It's not going to be a new coaster or anything, but I predict they could get something like a Kronos or like a Nebula's, specifically the Kronos, because that's a smaller version of it. And Michigan's Adventure definitely doesn't need capacity, but the Nebulous isn't very good for capacity in the first place, so maybe they'll go with that. But yeah, who knows? Just anything small from Zamperla, I think, is in the cards for them. And unfortunately, no, I don't think they're getting a Raptor or anything, but, anything. Literally, we'll take anything for Michigan's Michigan's Adventure. I'm even in disbelief that I'm saying this. I know there's no evidence to point to this, but I've just got this gut feeling. My gut could be awful right now, but I've just got that feeling, okay? So, Michigan's Adventure, yeah, they're getting a Kronos, something like that. And, yeah, that's probably my boldest I don't know if that's my boldest, but it's one of them for this video. So, let's move on to something more reasonable. I do think Worlds of Fun is going to get something new next year. Again, I'm thinking something smaller, like a Nebulous, maybe a Air Race or a Griffin or something like that. If they're lucky, maybe a water park edition, but I'm definitely thinking smaller this year. If they do anything, it's going to be 2026 for World Cup, but again, I don't really see that theory being that reasonable because everyone's going to go to Worlds of Fun anyway if they're going to go to an amusement park. So, yeah, I just don't think they're going to get anything too huge this year or next year. I'm thinking, again, maybe flat rides this year, water park next year, something like that. Nothing too fancy, but definitely something reasonable. So let's move on to Cedar Point. Obviously, they're the stars this year with Top Thrill 2. They're definitely going to take a step back next year, obviously. And I predict they're actually going to get something from Zamperla again. So 3 years in a row getting Zamperlas. And I predict this to be an Endeavor. Now, this makes way too much sense to not happen. Whether it's this year or a year further down the line, they're definitely going to end up with an Endeavor. Kings Island just got one, and it seems to be working pretty well for them. Plus, they used to have Witch's Wheel, and I feel like that would be a great throwback to that. A lot of parks that have these Endeavors used to have old Enterprises, so that'd be a great throwback to that. So I mean, it just makes too much sense. I don't know if you put it where Witch's Wheel was, that might be sort of a cool throwback to that as well. I would personally do that, especially since you're kind of redoing that whole area by Magnum and Dragster, kind of connecting it. But I don't know, that's just my take. I definitely think they're going to end up with an Endeavor at some point, though. So let's move on to Kings Island. I think they're going to end up with more Zamperla flat rides. Big year for Zamperla and Cedar Fair, I guess, I'm predicting. But, yeah, again, Air Race, Griffin, Nebulous, just pretty much anything's on the table for these guys. I think they're going to get some sort of combo deal. I don't think they'd just get one flat ride. I mean, maybe, but Kings Island doesn't seem like they'd do something like that. And if they don't get this flat ride deal, I think they're going to end up with a water park expansion. I don't see any way Kings Island walks away with nothing this year. So, yeah, even if we don't get any flat rides or anything in the dry park, I think we'll end up with something in the water park, which, honestly, the more I think about it, that's probably what's going to happen, especially if Worlds of Fun get some flat rides. But you never know. We could end up with a lot of Zamperla flat rides, which, I mean, depending on your view of them, could be a good or bad thing. They're definitely not the greatest things in the world, but, you know, they get the job done. They're people pleasers. You know, they're just good enough. They'll get the job done for you. So that's all fine and dandy. Let's move on to Knott's, and we kind of know what's happening here. Montezuma's coming back. It's supposed to be themed better and all this, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to come back. It's not going to be as good. It's not going to be like Psyche Underground, where the theming carries the flywheel launch being gone, but yeah, I think it's going to be all right. It's going to be good to have back. It's not going to be Psyche Underground like I saw, but yeah, it's just not going to be the same. I don't even know how to spin it. The flywheel launch was pretty much the ride on it from what I hear, and those are really punchy launches from what I experienced. And without like this insane theming like Psyche Underground, I think it's kind of just going to be mid. I don't know. I've never done it. I've never done the original, or probably, honestly, I might go to Knott's in 2025. We'll see, but yeah, it's going to be a bit till I get on this one, obviously, so I wouldn't know, but just from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's going to be a downgrade, but still, it's coming back, it's adding more capacity, you can't really complain a whole lot. So now let's move on to the big three, these being the three coasters that I predict are going to come to the Cedar Fair chain, and we'll start off with the smallest, get to the biggest. We're going to start off with Carowinds. And I do predict, like everyone else, that they're going to get a Vekoma family boomerang. However, I have another gut feeling. My gut's really going to hate me after this, but I'm going to predict it's going to be a custom layout. It's not going to be the same as Snoopy's. Yeah, I might be eating a lot of words after this video, but yeah, I think it's going to be custom. I really do. They have all that Dinosaurs Alive space. They put out that survey, looked like they had some custom layouts in mind potentially. So yeah, I think it's going to be a custom layout. Obviously, I'm not going to get my hopes up, but you know, flying through the woods, you got all that space back there. I think it would just be perfect to do something custom in that area. And I don't really think they're going to get a water ride or anything like that. I think we're pretty much locked into a family coaster next year, and Family Boomerang makes by far the most sense, especially if it's going to be a clone, but even if it's not, like I'm predicting, I still think it's a Vekoma Family Boomerang for Carowinds. So now let's get into the first thrill coaster, this being one we already know, basically. This is the King's Dominion launched B&M Wing Coaster. The second part of Jungle X, the replacement for Volcano. We all know what's going to happen here. They have the leaks. Pretty much all the signs point to a launch B&M Wing. And yeah, I'm sort of mad about it, but like at the same time, they could have done worse. They really could have. So I can't be too mad. It looks like there's actually going to be a dip out of the launch, so sort of a Furious Baco effect there. I don't know how that's going to play out, especially with vests. But that could definitely be interesting, especially if the vests have a lot more give to them than some of the others. So that could be interesting. The layout looks good. It's got a launch. The pacing will probably be on par with like Thunderbirds. So it could easily be the best wing, period, maybe. I don't know. Falcon over in China looks pretty good. But, I mean, it could be, for sure. Especially if they theme it right. This will definitely be a welcome addition. Probably number 3 in the park. So, overall, not too shabby. They could have done worse with this. Could have done a lot better. But, you know, I think they're really saving all they got for the number 1 new addition coming next year, and that is, of course, Canada's Wonderland. And oh boy, have I been following this construction for like the past couple years, and I think they're really cooking up something special here, and I don't think it's what you think it is. So everyone saw that Volcano the Blast Coaster Reborn type thing during the survey. It was going to be a B&M launched invert, something totally out of the ordinary like that. It would shoot out of Wonder Mountain like Volcano used to. And that's not going to happen, I hate to tell you. Actually, I don't hate to tell you, because what I got is a lot better. But, yeah, that's not going to happen, because as you follow the construction, it does not follow that pattern at all. It goes from, like, Extreme Skyflyer, that old plot of land, all the way to, like, Alpen. And the way it's all laid out definitely points more towards a multi-launch. And a lot of people think maybe it's going to be B&M still, because Canada's Wonderland loves their B&M. No, it is not a B&M. And some people even thought it was still going to be a launched B&M wing at first. The tunnels that they're like putting through Wonder Mountain are nowhere near big enough for a wing coaster to fit through. So that's definitely out, thank God. But yeah, overall, there's still a few options left when you narrow it down to multi-launch. Is it going to be family or thrill? It's going to be thrill. There's no way they're doing a family coaster here. Is it going to be Vekoma, B&M, some people might think, Intamin, Mach, whatever. Again, I don't think it's anyone like Vekoma, just because the way the layout's being organized, I don't think they'd do something like that. Mach rides, they're definitely a possibility. They're in the contention. They're running. Jesus Christ, they're in the running for it, is what I'm trying to say. Intamin, a lot of people think Cedar Fair patched things up with them. I still think they're going to be a little hesitant to go with Intamin. However, something that was pointed out by Amusement Insiders is that there's a top hat sort of being formed by Alpen that looks very reminiscent of how Intamin profiles their top hats. And I just want to say that makes me think Intamin's the number 2 contender, for sure. However, there's one other that just makes so much sense. And I get it. They don't have top hats like this. However, this manufacturer has never done a custom top hat like this for this major of a ride. They've only fitted top hats, and I think some of you might know where I'm going with this. Yes, my final prediction for Canada's Wonderland's 2025 coaster is going to be a Zamperla multi-launch. I know, I'm coming out with all the bold predictions this video, but yeah, I think Cedar Fair is really pleased with Top Thrill 2. It doesn't look that reliable, but that being said, I mean, it's a 420-foot coaster. It's not going to be reliable no matter what you do. So for what it is, it looks pretty reliable. All the people love it, and it just makes too much sense. And they probably got some sort of package deal with Zamperla. I know Knott's Berry Farm could potentially get a custom multi-launch in the future, which I wouldn't be totally against. And yeah, this Zamperla layout overall it looks fantastic. I predict this to be a top 25 coaster in the world when it opens. It looks like they're really trying to make their own version of like Gotham City Escape here. It looks fantastic what they're doing from where all the markings and everything are sort of going. It's easily going to be the best in the park, easily best in Canada. That's not even close. But it could be top 25 in the world for sure when it opens. I know that's a bold prediction. It might not be Zamperla. It could still be Intamin or Mock or whatever. But I think Zamperla could have learned a lot from retrofitting those top hats by Intamin and sort of copied their style in a way. So I want to know what you guys think of these predictions down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.